Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, children,
Every time.
animals. Good morning.
Coming in hot.
I know. I like to really get our. I actually thought about starting this episode like, "Good evening," and make it like a whispery crime drama.
We could still do that.
We could. I don't know if people would pay attention as much.
Yeah, probably
All
not.
right, we'll keep it going. Welcome to the Coachy Shit podcast. She's Teresa Rezga,
He's Ryan Stanley
and we are here once again for episode 19.
to talk about Coachy Shit.
Coachy Shit 19. How's it going today, Teresa?
It's going all right.
What is today's Coachy Shit? What's on the agenda? I saw you this morning. First thing I noticed was your eye.
I know, it's so bad.
We got a little sty. No, it's not a
it's
sty.
not a
It's definitely not a
sty.
sty.
It's straight up pink eye.
just a
This
red-
thing, and this is after a couple rounds of redness reducing
Yeah.
eye drops.
It was good though. It's really.
Well, so I happened to walk past one of our other colleagues, Wendy, earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "Oh, I'll watch it for you." I was like, "What do you mean watch it for you?" She's like, "Well, it's your eye, so you're not going to see if it gets redder." And then I ran into her a little bit later in the day. She was like,
Ho.
I was actually talking to my mom on the phone, and she's like, "Teresa, you need to hang up." I was like, "What?" She's like, "You need to see a doctor." It spread to the other side of the same eye.
Yeah, very colorful. It looks nice though.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Giving the whole view.
Yeah, good stuff. So that was the first thing I
That's
noticed.
the first thing.
And then we talked. You've been in Boston this week at Inbound.
Yeah, I went to Inbound 17, super awesome conference,
Nice.
sales, marketing. Learned so much.
Pretty good
like,
stuff.
So much about sales. Oh my God.
Nice.
And how to mix it with coaching, which is super cool because what we do is not sales, but it's not just coaching. It's kind of,
The hybrid.
yeah, it's like helping somebody make the best decision for them possible.
And even in our own practices is a place when if you're starting your own practice, it's good to have some sales skills mixed in with your coaching and
Yeah, get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Learned a lot though. Like, I can honestly say, I kind of feel like a sales professional.
nice. Welcome.
Thanks, man.
Um,
Because I am also a professional coach.
well, we knew that already.
Yeah.
But then the second thing he said, so I said, how was your? At first I noticed your eye. How was your trip? We haven't been able to do an episode this week, so let's rock one out today after work.
Uh-huh.
Here we are, and I said to you, do you have an idea for a topic? And you just kind of looked at me with a smug smile.
Oh, do I have a
And
topic?
said, yes, my head almost exploded last night at the airport. And I decided just to leave it at that and to find out more. And so here we are
Here we are.
for the head exploding pink eye topic from T-Money.
Apparently my head tried to explode out of
Right,
my right eye.
maybe that's what happened. Maybe this
Hey.
information was so powerful that it literally just sent blood
Launched
rushing to
out
the
of my
eye.
cornea. But before we do that, I would like to introduce our snack of the day.
Please, thank you.
But
I'm glad you said
somebody
something.
got a little too overzealous. This is Kirkland Costco brand.
Nice.
Organic hummus. And I will open mine as yours is already open.
I was a little excited.
I can tell. And we also have, we're repping Kirkland hardcore, man.
Somebody's got to do it.
It's going to be us. So we also have Kirkland organic tortilla chips. They're corn for those of you who are,
Would it be tortilla?
gluten haters. So tortilla chips. And then also, we have our Dasani sparkling berry. I love this stuff.
It's naturally flavored sparkling water beverage
Yeah, and Ryan, you
with natural flavors. And
already opened yours.
I opened mine just.
Such a lie.
This is a little disappointing.
Cheers.
Salud
Here we go. Prost.
to episode 19.
Astoria. Whatever. Cheers. So,
But wait, I'm going to tell a quick Kirkland story.
okay.
So my dad used to always go to Costco. Everything was Costco. It was his life
Yeah.
was Costco. So for a long time, and this is when I was younger, I was living with him, and he would bring me home. I had Kirkland sneakers.
No way.
I had Kirkland jeans. Very, very stylish. And so now
Like
whenever
mom jeans.
whenever I see that now, I get a little bit of a shiver. But enough about me and Kirkland.
Wow.
It's an old relationship. It's good to see her every once in a while, though.
Yeah. She's around.
Yeah.
I
I digress. Topic
Cool.
for today.
So, I've been carrying around this essay literally in my backpack for like a year. Like that one.
Yeah.
I made you a copy.
Thank you.
Obviously mine,
Has
Has
some
a lot of-
notes already, some scribbles,
some writing.
some underlines.
it's only a couple pages.
All right.
I'm trying to think. Nope, I didn't write anything back. But I don't know. I have this thing where I just kind of hang on to certain things and I don't let them go. And I don't like look at them, but I know intuitively like, oh, this will come up at perfect timing. Oh. I had like, oh my gosh, it was like a 3.5, almost 4 hour layover last night
Yeah.
at Logan Airport in Boston. There was apparently wind to where I was going. So, hung out for a bit. And was like, I've already read The Alchemist like 14 times. I always carry The Alchemist when I travel. And I have like what I call my world copy.
Yeah.
So everywhere I go with that book, I put it in the cover. So
Yeah.
that book has been all over the world.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I've already kind of read this book. I was really sick of reading about sales and marketing. Kind of done with coaching for a bit. So I pulled out this essay. It is Sigmund Freud, Mr. Freud, and the name of it is On Transience. I thought it was Transience.
Yeah. When you put it on the list, I thought that's what it was as well, and I didn't really understand what that meant.
There's a lot of topics around trans everything these days. So like transcontinental, transgender. But this is transience.
Not to be confused with trans science.
No. It's like science,
Right.
you know. So transience, and it's an essay by Freud. And I read it last night. Sleep deprived, had a fever.
Just
A
gonna
whole
have some
bunch
hummus
of,
here. Go ahead.
by all means. It's very crunchy. A whole bunch of, I would say, things distracting me. But so I read it, and my brain exploded. It almost took me like an hour to read. And then I read it again, and then I put notes in it. And then I read my notes, and I put notes on my notes.
Good. We got everything covered, I think, it sounds like.
Sometimes, hey, look, there's a process. I don't even know the process. I just go with it.
I'm with you.
There was some guy who was talking on his cell phone on speaker mode. I was like, dude, come on.
Nobody wants to hear everything.
But I got these awesome earplugs. They're called eargasms.
Yeah.
And they lower decibels. They don't muffle noise.
Right.
So I don't know. Shout out. They're pretty awesome. They're like $20. They're pretty dope.
Eargasm. Can't go wrong.
Can't do it. So this essay is on transience. And basically, this guy Freud, good old Sig, he's hanging out with his buddy Relke. I think it's Relke or Rolke.
Isn't that
He's a poet.
Thor's brother? No, that's Loki. Sorry.
Loki.
Go ahead.
Keep it low key, Ryan.
All right, that was a high five.
Could you please? So Rolke he's a poet. He's an artist. And, you know, they're walking. These two are on this walk. And Freud is writing about it in retrospect. But he's on this walk. And he looks at his friend, this artist, this poet. And the guy looks sad. And he's like, what's going on over there? And basically...
Now, real quick, this is an important question.
Uh-huh.
Do we think this is like the early 1900s?
This is Freud, that one in the picture.
No, I know who. Yes, I know who Freud. I know what he looks like, but
Yeah.
So here's a picture taken in 1920. So that's okay. So it's around that. I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
an idea of when this was happening.
So this is from so this copy that I have given you here is actually from a standard edition of the complete psychological works of Sigmund Freud.
Right.
So the volume 1 was somewhere like 1914, 16, something like that. But he was German.
Yeah.
So a lot of his stuff is translated.
Sure. Ours trans again, by the way.
Exactly. Translated, trans science. So that's what this is from.
Yeah. Sorry, he's walking. I didn't mean to change it. I was just saying, I was curious as when they were walking, like, well, I was trying to just picture the world at this time, that's all.
Well, the world was a small place, but it was getting bigger, right? So you have the steam engine, you have, I think there already, a world war had already happened, the colonies were as they were.
Definitely done.
But we didn't have the internet.
Right,
So,
for sure.
So, yeah, so no internet. So the world is still a little bit smaller than it is today.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of pristine nature. So they're out in this beautiful wilderness in this countryside, and they have to be in Germany. I just want them to be in Germany.
So for the sake of this podcast and anybody listening and imagining Freud talking with Loki,
Rolke,
talking with Thor's brother, walking, he's got these... Go ahead.
big horns.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
I'm with you. Yep.
Okay. So they're walking
It's Germany.
through this, yeah. Have you ever been? You've been to Germany, right?
Never.
Countryside for days.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really small airport. You know what? That's beside the point.
Okay.
But it's a beautiful countryside.
Good.
I'll tell you that later. But so they're walking, and Sig looks at Rolke and he's like, "Hey man, why are you upset?" Rolke's like, "Dude, all this shit's gonna be gone one day. Isn't that crazy? That's sad. So sad." And Freud was like, "Bro."
And when he's saying all the shit, he's talking about nature, like
All
these
the
trees,
things,
like
everything in front of
everything
it.
that we're looking at some point will die.
Everything in your sphere of perception,
Right.
everything in that moment is gonna die.
Yeah.
It's gonna be laid to waste. It will be ash at some point in the future. And he's like, "Dude, it's so sad. This is ridiculous. Isn't this sad?" And Freud's like, bro, it's beautiful. Why can't you find any joy in it? And he actually writes, he's like, the poet admired the beauty of the scene around us, but felt no joy in it. So you're like, all right, what's the thing? And it was because he felt like all of this beauty was fated to extinction. And Freud was like, but it's right in front of us. Like, it's right here. Why can't you enjoy it? And Freud realized that this idea, it's kind of like rage against the dying of the light. So, like this idea that Rilke was seeing things as already being gone. He was seeing the transience of it.
Right.
Like the fact that it will move along and something else will replace it. And he's mourning the loss preemptively. It gives him this like preemptive mourning. There's a word that they use here, but I don't, it's not sticking out at me. But basically, Freud was like, dude, no, it's here now. Like, enjoy it. I can't understand why.
You would even spend a moment.
Well, just like, why is that your perception? Like, I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts digging into it. And he starts realizing for Rilke, it's like this idea that because something will be gone, he appreciates it. But what does he say? He says, limitation in the possibility of an enjoyment raises the value of the enjoyment. So feeling like something is limited increases the value of its enjoyment. So like Freud was like, well, why don't you enjoy it more because you know it's gone?
Right.
And this guy's like, well, I'm already mourning its loss before it's gone. So he starts going into this cool thing. He talks about like he says like he's actually pretty poetic. Like the way that Freud writes, I would say check this shit out because it's like kind of sexy.
Right.
And he goes into like this
Especially if
whole
you say it in like
value.
a thick German accent.
But since the value,
Not long ago, I went on a summer walk through the smiling countryside as a fan company and a Texan friend and a young but already famous poet. That's my best
Gotcha.
impromptu German.
There's spit everywhere.
Sorry.
But basically, he says what spoiled the enjoyment of beauty must have been a revolt in their minds against mourning. So basically, mourning.
Not to be confused with like the morning of the day, but the morning of like a passing.
Dude, speaking of mourning and mourning,
Yeah.
there was this crazy billboard by this tunnel that people used to speed through when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And always, like every freaking year, they would put this billboard up that said, stop speeding. Don't turn Christmas Eve into Christmas morning. And they spelled it like sad morning.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, okay, fine, I'll slow down.
Right. It's a little sad.
It worked.
Yeah.
And they just had an empty rocking chair with like a wreath on the ground. I was like, why?
Puppies crying. Like, yeah.
It was like, okay.
Sounds terrible. But here we are 20 years later or whatever. Or
dude,
10
it's
years
stuck.
later. And yeah.
It's stuck. But he says that the idea that all this beauty was transient was giving these two sensitive minds a foretaste of mourning over its future decease. And since the mind instinctively recoils from anything that is painful, they felt their enjoyment of beauty interfered by thoughts of its transience. So basically, it's like you're having this awe experience, this joy, this bliss experience, but this preemptive mourning, the feeling of future pain, creates suffering in the moment.
Now.
Yeah. And, you know, we talk about like attachment.
Yeah.
There was this podcast for a while called the Unattached podcast.
Right.
Have you ever heard of it?
I have, actually. I think everybody has.
I think it was pretty good from what I hear. But, you know, on to Coachy Shit.
Right.
So, so, you know, he talks about like this whole idea and it gets really interesting. And he basically says like, he even says it in the essay, like there's no psychological explanation for mourning. And I was like, I don't understand that. Like mourning is when you lose something. And I was like, well, when you lose something, what is that actually, like, what is that?
Right.
And he goes into here, he talks about, it seems, he says, we possess, as it seems, a certain amount of capacity for love. And he says what we call libido. So libido is like this capacity for love.
Yep.
And it's funny because people usually interpret that to be like sex. Like
Right.
you have
Sex
a capacity
like that, yeah.
for sexual love. But it's funny because in the actuality, in the sense of it, libido is just your capacity to love in general. So he says, you know, we possess this certain capacity for love, which in the earliest stages of development is directed toward our own ego. So we love ourselves. And Freud has the id, the ego, the superego, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you...
Ego with a cape.
Hey, his super ego. He's got a big E on his
Right,
chest.
giant
Wears his
E.
underwear on the outside. It's probably green.
I know that guy.
Yeah, he's cool. But basically, this libido that you have, over time, it's no longer just diverted toward the ego. It's diverted toward objects. So you fall in love with things. So I think when we were talking earlier, the thing I mentioned was my phone. Just the example, like,
Yeah.
I love, we'll use one that I actually love.
I love lamp.
I love lamp. I love my car.
Right.
I love my car.
Yeah.
Flat out, period. I love my car.
it.
It's like, it's done. We're together. We're in it. I want to be seen with her.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Like
Facebook official? It could be.
I don't love her that much.
Right, yeah.
I'm not going to Instagram my car,
Right.
but I could. I would get some likes.
Something to think about.
But, so, like, I love my car.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I loved my old car a lot.
Yeah.
I traded that fucker in.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't serving you so much anymore.
Not so much, but that's beside the point.
Right, that's not.
The idea is that I had love for my car, and I mourned my car's loss. And basically the idea that Freud puts forth here, and I think I understand it, but like I said, little sleep, high fever, one of my eyes is a little wonky,
Right.
tired,
People
the whole
on
thing.
speakerphones.
Yeah, speakerphones, airport, lots of noise. So I got to read this maybe for like a fourth or fifth time at some point, and then read my notes more.
Please do.
But the idea is that when you have love for something, so my old car, we called it the chicken. So I loved the
Fire
chicken.
chicken.
Fire chicken, the
All right.
chicken, the coop. But I loved the chicken. And the assumption from Freud is that I've redirected some of the love that, my libido, the capacity that I had for love for the ego, for myself, I redirected it and placed it on this object, this car.
Yep.
And then when I released this car, when I got rid of this car, when this car no longer was there was this feeling of loss. And because that love now still exists, but the object to which it was applied no longer exists in actuality in my sphere of influence, relevance, and life, I now have this love that's misplaced. It has nowhere to go. So the idea, I think, as I can possibly understand it, is that mourning is that piece of love, that libido, that capacity for love returning back to the self, returning back to the ego, and finding a new place for it to be put.
Until it finds a new place.
It can be conscious or unconscious. So that's the
But I'm
thing he
saying-
also mentions is that, mourning, as we know, however painful it may be, comes to a spontaneous end. It halts.
Right.
So for me, I lost a relationship recently, ended it, lost it, whatever. There was an end to it.
Yep.
And I had this feeling of mourning. It was really sad. It sucked. And then I reached a point where I was no longer sad, and I realized, for me, why. There was a drop dead end to my mourning because I realized what my mourning was coming from.
Yeah.
With my car, it's a little different. It was more like, oh, I miss you. Oh, I have this
hello.
new fancy schmancy.
Yeah.
So, but the idea is that we place love on these objects, and because we know we can kind of project into this future that doesn't necessarily exist, but that, in Buddhism, the only constant is change. Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
So you can project forward that you will lose this thing. And that's why a lot of times in love, there's melancholy. Because, what's his name? Jason Silva, he does Shots of Awe.
Yeah.
He's got a video, I'd have to find it, but he talks about, like, the melancholy in love. And that's why things are bittersweet. It's because...
If you do find it, will you put it in the Facebook comments?
No.
Okay.
Of course.
All right.
But he talks about, when you look over at your children or your wife or a loved one, you feel this deep emotional connectivity of love and connection, but you also feel this sense of foreboding joy, this loss that you'll experience. So you have it, but you're already gone. The moment that you're in
the love is
already
still there,
ending.
and if they weren't there, what would it be like? Or one day when they're gone?
Not even that. You don't even preemptively create a scenario. You just have a feeling.
Okay.
So it's not like in your mind you're consciously thinking, oh, you're going to be gone. It's like you already create this in your subconscious and it comes forth, and that's where you get melancholy. It's
Okay.
like happy, sad.
Yeah.
And it also, Jason Silva, there's a lot of, I don't want to say research, but writing and philosophizing on this. And Camus talked about this, Albert Camus.
Yeah.
He talks about, like once you realize you're in a moment, you realize that it's passing. And as that moment is happening, it's already gone.
Right.
So you're already sad about its passing while it's happening.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's really incredible when you really think about the
Starts to hurt
implication.
the brain, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you can step outside of that and see yourself, like the truth, not what you want to be true and what you think is true, but the actual truth of, yeah, this shit's going to be gone. And that's why Freud was like so brilliant to me. I think he was brilliant in this essay because even he ends it, you know, this is right after World War One.
Right.
Oh, to answer your time frame thing, yeah, it's right. I forgot about this. It's right after World War One, and I read some of the objections and some of the opinions on this essay specifically by other philosophers and writers and, you know, other people who've read this. I mean, it's kind of a known work. It's very debated. But he even ends his essay. He says, when the morning, he talks about how the war created like so much sadness.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, they're going to bomb us. We're going to go to war. We're going to lose all this. But basically, as soon as the war ended, it was like, we're going to rebuild.
Right. Now this is our new mission. We spent so much time thinking that all was going to happen that was bad.
Well, it wasn't the regret of, oh, we spent so much time. It was
No,
just,
I'm saying
like life moved on.
Right.
Like
That's what I'm
the
saying.
transience, it was like a perfect example of actual transience in action. And he even quotes it. He says, once the morning is over, it will be found that our high opinion of the riches of civilization have lost nothing from our discovery of their fragility. So even by discovering how fragile they are, they don't lose richness because life just keeps moving on. So he even says, we shall build up again all that war has destroyed and perhaps on firmer ground and more lastingly than before. So he's saying, cool, it's just going to keep going. And maybe the shit that you build this time will last longer.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Well, why would you say that? What do you
I'm
mean?
saying,
Whether
you said
make
it's going to keep going. I'm
Yeah.
saying, so I'm saying whether you
Oh, the
decide.
cycle of transience.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this totally blew my mind. So basically, when you end mourning, the ego is free. So when you're sad about something, you've attached a story to it. And when you are no longer sad about it, when you're no longer like, all of these trees will die, that's pulling you out of the now. You're no longer patient, present, or joyful.
Right.
You are now in the future, stressed and suffering. According
Right.
to Freud, it creates ultimate suffering. So basically, the idea is, you know, with the end of mourning, the ego is free to redirect its energies toward new objects.
Not nude
Or
objects.
could be, depending. I mean, Freud was a little weird.
I've heard that.
But it was like, holy shit. So if you have no story around anything, there's no matter. Like, it's totally detachment. I don't know. It blew my mind.
That was it.
Like,
Gave you pink eye.
it literally gave me pink eye. And then
so-
there's that quote,
Go ahead.
do not go quietly into that good night.
Yeah.
Rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
And he ties that in somehow, but
But,
it's amazing.
so, and just to tie back to that last piece there. So it's interesting, and I think I put this on the list. I went camping last weekend, and it was this beautiful sunset.
Yeah.
But I was out camping. I was out in nature. And as the sun starts going down, the sunset became, for my opinion, less beautiful. You know, once the kind of colors drift away a
Transient?
little bit. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, as it's going, I was like, oh, don't go, sunset. But at the same time, I stopped and said, well, why not go? It's going to go, and it's going to come back tomorrow. There'll be other sunsets. And who knows what this beautiful sky is going to bring out tonight. So the reason I brought that up was just a second ago you said, so curse the light for leaving. But no, let's just state the
Rage
lesson.
against the dying of the light. So
Thank you.
fight for keeping your joy now.
Got it. So, but it's not so much the dying, that's not what I'm fighting against as much as the ability to be present.
Yeah, so even what you
So
said,
not
though...
not the light itself that I'm raging. So that's what threw me off a little bit. So it's more just about how to decide.
It's a metaphor.
I know it's a metaphor, but still it's a pretty powerful statement. Rage against the dying light. It's like
People have it tattooed.
Yeah.
It's like a thing.
it's a thing apparently.
It's like Invictus, like, I'm the captain of my ship, the
Yeah.
master of my fate. It's like a thing.
Captain, my captain.
We're all captain, my captain. But the thing you even said is like, why am I fighting the sun going down? There could be a more beautiful sky. That's pulling you into a different potential future. So
Right.
it's the same thing. You're just rationalizing it in more of an anabolic, kind of positive, comforting way.
Yeah.
To alleviate
Or
suffering.
choosing, a different
Instead
future
of
to be excited about,
Yeah,
as
but
opposed to
that's
just being here for whatever
totally
is right
present.
this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that Freud was like, what is going on? This shit's beautiful now. Like, I don't know what your problem is. And he basically puts it out there. And again, Freud is all about the ego.
Yeah.
But I was like, holy shit. So then I got like real weird. I was like, I even wrote here, I was like, do we really only have a limited capacity to love or for love? Like, we only have so much love to give? And then I was like, oh my God. So evolutionarily, like, does love even exist? Like, evolutionarily, right? You can explain everything with evolution. Survival of the fittest. So why do we even love? Where did love come from in an evolutionary sense? Pack animals,
Yeah, connectivity,
reproduction,
community.
procreation. Then I was like, so is love just an evolutionary response to ingrained herd mentality and group survival? Then I was like, I even wrote down, I was like, is love real? Like, I had the whole progression.
No, I see that.
I know. My fucking mind exploded.
And
then I was like, is there an eternal future then? Like, does an eternal future exist? So then it goes into this
wait a second.
idea.
What does an eternal future have to do with anything that you just said?
Because if you, okay, so I jumped around a little. As you see, there's a space here.
Right, there's definitely space. They could have been written at completely different times. I'm with you.
Oh no, I remember this. And then I came to eternal future. This is where I went for a walk.
Good call.
Yeah, I got a coffee.
Yeah, all right, I got to stretch.
Gotta hang out. And that guy on the speakerphone.
I hate that guy.
He was a cute kid though.
Yeah.
But so is love real? Went to eternal future, right? So it, you know, when you pull out of the evolutionary sense, you pull out of the physicality, the fact that we're like people with bones and we're meat suits
yep.
on a flying rock.
Gotcha.
You know, the whole thing.
Blue
When
dot,
we
floating through
die,
space.
yeah. So when we die, nobody knows what happens when you die, but you can make an assumption. So consciousness continues.
Shifts, yep.
In one way or another. And there's that quote Jim Carrey says, he's like, and this is not just him, but he's the one that comes to mind that repeated it most recently. He's like, or no, maybe it's Wayne Dyer. Jim Carrey's a different facet of it, but he says, Wayne Dyer actually says, you're not a physical being having a spiritual experience, you're a spiritual being having a
physical experience. Yeah, yeah.
having a physical experience. So then it's this idea, so does consciousness carry on? And then does love follow consciousness? Because if love is just evolutionary, then consciousness is what continues. So, but consciousness has its own experience every which way. It just depends on where technically where the consciousness is applied. So if consciousness is applied to a human body, that's your experience. If consciousness applies to a squirrel, that's the experience, you know? And then I was like, holy shit. If we're talking about transience, everything just continues and changes and we'll die and then we'll grow. Do we literally have an eternal future? Because some people say like heaven, hell, purgatory, whatever.
Right.
And that's how I got to eternal future.
And it's always, that's eternity there as far as theoretically.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, in the biblical sense, but then you even get to the Buddhists and they talk about total detachment. And when you have detachment, you reach nirvana. At the end of the Celestine prophecy, they talk about how you reach such a high vibration of self that you literally disappear and you become absolute consciousness.
Right.
But you still, there's still the experience of what's happening around you and you experience that transience. And I was like, shit, does that mean there's an eternal future? Somehow, some way?
Yeah.
So my brain exploded.
All right.
And there you have it.
That's it. That's the debrief on Freud's history of the psychoanalytic movement.
No, that's
sorry.
no, that's
What's
the
this one
book.
in particular?
This is volume.
Oh, just on transience.
This is volume 16
Nice.
of all of his collected works.
I love
This
it.
is just one essay. It's called On Transience.
On transience. That was my French version.
Translated by James Strachey.
I wanted to. I always thought a great Halloween costume would be to like get like a scientific, like a Freudian beard, you know, and like
Yeah.
kind of glasses, and like do the face thing like Freud, and then just put like a slip on, like a woman's
Freudian slip?
Yeah, and be a Freudian slip.
I've seen something similar, a woman wearing a slip and there were just all actual Freudian slips pinned onto it.
Ah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So what are your thoughts on this? Give it to me straight.
Yeah, I love it. I think it ties into a lot of the stuff that we talk about as far as being present, being aware. I would have to dive a little bit more into...
I asked you to read it.
Yeah,
You're like, nah, it's cool.
Well, I could have read the whole thing right before this, but
like-
I really prefer your interpretation first, so then I go in and look at it and know what the heck I'm
Well,
reading.
I'm priming you.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate
anybody out there, read Freud first. Don't listen to this shit.
Yeah, stop listening, go back in time. What's it?
There's a lot in here. Like, even one of the questions was like I was like, okay, well, why do some people mourn longer than others? Why do we mourn certain things longer than others? Does it take us that long to regain that that love
And
for
just
self.
for clarity on your question, when you say I think there's two different questions there.
Okay.
Well, just for our audience,
I'm amped up, man. What do you got?
Why do some people mourn longer than others is different compared to why do we mourn some things more than others or longer than others?
Well, basically length of time.
Right.
So why is the length of time shorter or longer?
No, but I just
And
meant like
why-
you might mourn differently than I mourn. And so that is a whole different thing compared to why
also-
would I mourn this soda longer
versus
than
something else.
Yeah.
No, those are all questions. Yeah, absolutely. So two different questions, but still the idea is what makes mourning different for each individual and each object.
Well, I think it all comes down to lack, a feeling of lack on some level. From the human experience, I'm not having an opportunity to experience this anymore, or at all, or
Well, so you can explain it as lack, but the way that it's described here is misplaced love.
right.
So you're loving something that's not there.
Therefore, it's lacking.
I mean, that would be an ex post facto, yeah, but ultimately you're ending the sentence there.
Not the ex post facto.
It's when I say that, it organizes things in my brain. Like they go in a certain filing cabinet, if then this,
Yeah,
that kind
I'm
of
with you.
thing.
I just like to mock you a little
keep
bit.
logical progression. Yeah, but you're fucking me up.
Sorry.
So stop that. But basically, see, I don't remember.
Ex post facto.
And I got nothing.
We're talking about love, like
Oh,
I said it was
the
lack,
statement
and you said
ends.
yeah.
The statement is over. It's like it's just misplaced love. It's not therefore lack. It's just misplaced love. By saying that there's lack, then you're bringing lack into
So when you
it.
say it's misplaced, it's just not loving something or loving something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you're not lacking it. You're loving it, but it's not like
There.
it's not there. But even if it is there, you're foreboding its disappearance. You really fucked me up.
Sorry. Let me ask you this question.
What do you got?
What is your biggest takeaway? Meaning, like, how is this serving you? Like, how will you utilize this in the near future?
So two things. One, discretion, right? So love is a choice. Love is not something that happens to you. Love is not something that you do. Like I decided to love my car. Like I looked for the things that I had 3 criteria that turned into 4 criteria. That's another episode. But I love my car. I have chosen the car to love. There are other cars that meet the criteria, this, that, and the other thing. But I basically, remember I sent you a message. I said, I'm going to get this car like
Yeah.
months ago.
In fact, it's on episode. I'm not joking. It's on episode 17. You're like, I know a car. I'm going to get.
Yeah. So that's what I did. And you actually picked my car out accidentally. I was like, oh, I really wanted this car. I got like this fancy one. I was like, oh, I'm going to get this one. And I was like, dude, it fell through. And you're like, well, this one just popped up.
Right.
And I was like, no shit. Awesome. That's the car I got. So that was the thing. So it's being discretionary with what you love. And when I say love, I mean like what you invest in.
Yeah.
So time, resources, energy, that idea of being discretionary, especially under the guise that there is a limited amount. Like there is a libido capacity. There's a capacity for love, period. And I always joked, I dated a guy way back and I was like, dude, we need to get a dog. And he's like, why? I was like, because I have puppy love. Like I have dog love that I have to give to a dog.
Right.
And I need to do that. And he's
Now.
like, yeah. So, I would just borrow some people's dogs here and there, but like discretion. The second part is like total like reiteration.
I have to go back. I'm sorry. So I don't know if you want to write down the second part before you forget it. So I don't want to fuck you up again.
Hold on. Okay.
All right. But the
Thanks.
first part,
I appreciate
total
you.
discretion.
Yeah.
Is that saying, so now I'm, after, hypothetically, I'm not saying holding you accountable for the rest of your life, but I'm saying, so after reading this, so now you become more aware of what you allow your love to be in and on?
It's more the why. So, we were talking about earlier, so I fell in love with a guy. And when it ended, I thought I ended it. I think he thinks he ended it. I don't really care. It ended.
Right.
And it was really sad for me.
Yeah.
And it sucked. And I was like, why am I so sad? Like, did I love this person that much? And I kept going back to why. Why did I love this person? And it was like, oh, some of the nuance, who they were, what they, their uniqueness, their individuality, all these things. But I came back to one certain trait that had nothing to do with that person. It was something I associated with that person. It was a certain feeling. It was a certain experience that I gave to that situation. I gave that love to that individual, to this dynamic.
Right.
And when the the dynamic ended, I thought that I had lost that quality. And that's when I stopped mourning, is when I realized, holy shit, no, I don't need that person. I don't need anybody for that. This is a story that I've attached. So any story is the ego. So I went back in my mind and I was looking at this and I was like, wait a second. So if a story is the ego, and the reason I love something, a chunk of it is because of the story I've given it. So am I technically just...
And how my ego feels when I'm in that space.
Not, well, sure, but basically it's this idea that I am still placing my love on the ego, but I'm redirecting it toward an object, and I am applying my ego to that object, and therefore loving that because of my ego. And then I was like, fuck. And I would like, and this was a couple weeks ago, I realized the thing, and my morning was just over. It was done, because I realized. But then I was reading this last night, and I was like, oh, what else in my life is like this? Like, I started asking, why do I love stuff? Like, why do I love my car? Granted, I know why I love my car. I've chosen that. But it's being more discretionary with understanding the why. Because also when you apply your ego and you create love in those instances, it's also, it can be self-serving, and then you settle and you let go of things. So this guy I was dating, I don't want to say that I settled, but there were things that I normally would not have been okay with. And I didn't say anything, or I didn't say as much, or I didn't, call as much awareness to it, because I was more drawn to that one quality that I really wanted.
Right.
So you let other things slide, and that's also trading off of the ego.
Nice.
It was really interesting.
Pretty powerful takeaway.
Oh yeah, totally. But it was really cool to see it kind of laid out in this essay randomly.
From 1917, a German dude
Well, it
walking
was
through a
after the
field with another
war.
man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And apparently they didn't, like, they were friends, but they didn't want to be friends. It was weird. I don't know. But the second thing...
I had a lot of friends like that.
Yeah. Oh, who's this guy? But the second thing was that this idea that, what I just kind of said, like the idea that the ego is placed on other things. And basically, if you just don't want anything, you're good.
Right.
Like, if you just don't want anything, you're good.
I have that thought all the time.
Like...
I'm not even kidding. I agree.
Yeah.
I know.
It's like when people are like, oh, it wasn't what I expected. It's like, dude, I'm just happy to be here. Like, oh, the steak wasn't that great. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy I dated, he would like, and oh my gosh, so many people. Like, I was just in Boston for a week, and I was with a couple people, and this one person was just like all about the menu, and I was like, I'm just happy to have food.
And a lot of different options.
Which has its pluses and minuses, though. Not even the options. I was like, I'm just happy to be satiated. Like, like in the self-journal, a lot of times...
Get in my belly.
Well, a lot
Whatever
of times,
you are.
In the self-journal, what I'm gratitude for is just food.
Yeah.
Like, it's not this food or that. It's just food.
Yeah, maybe we should do an episode one day on, like, the most random things we were grateful for.
Oh my
in
God. My bed shows up there a lot. Now my car shows up there a lot.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you...
I don't know. I mean, nothing in particular. I don't know. Should I take a look? See if I can find something. Do we have time?
God.
I'll see if I can
We're
find
almost
the most...
at 40 minutes.
Oh my gosh. All right. Never mind. I'll save it then.
We'll find the most random one that you can
Right now,
just off the top of your head.
We're only 33 days in, so...
I'm not reading the words, but I feel like your handwriting is just so much more legible than mine. I have the worst handwriting.
These are all pretty kind of coachy things in my family and stuff. I'm just trying... Oh, well, here's fish. I got fish in there every once in a while.
Family, that's a big one. I'm thankful for... my gratitude is for my family a lot.
Ability to be present. Opportunity of the future. Oh, look, here's what... Well, it's not random. It's just some...
What do you got?
I'm trying to look for something funny. None of it's really that great. Never mind. That's a bad idea for an episode.
Lot of judgment.
I know. Well, here's my bed. I got my bed in there once.
My bed is in there most mornings.
You're right. Well, bad choice option. But anyway.
Today, I am thankful. I got a postcard from Burma.
Yeah?
That was really cool.
Who's Burma? And why is he sending you postcards?
Myanmar. It's from my buddy Kid. You know Kid.
I do. I'm just kidding around.
That was really cool. The one thing, having a convertible.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope. So the day that I sold my car, in the morning I was thankful for my old car. Or no, I was thankful, it's not this day, but I was thankful for my potential to have a new car. And then at the end of the day, I was thankful for my old car.
Nice.
All it's given me.
The full cycle.
Yeah, talk about transience.
It is What a way to end.
Hey, wait, I didn't ask you, what are your biggest takeaways from
this?
My, like, intense rambling
Just
about
debrief?
how crazy this is. Yeah.
I think my biggest takeaway is that there's
You should date and locate everything.
no.
Top right
I
corner.
like that one though.
Thanks.
I would say my biggest takeaway is an awareness around the value of Sigmund Freud, and that it's probably worth some time for me to do, some research on.
Cool.
But I also like if I going back to my own specific example, was like, okay, so I was thinking about writing this whole blog about don't curse the dying of the light, and more embrace the future of the moon or the dark, the stars or whatever. And I'm not saying to do the opposite and not embrace, but I'm saying that it is something also to pay attention to do neither, and to really just embrace for what is.
Well, that's kind of what rage against the dying of the light is, also rage against the dying of your own joy.
Right.
So rage to be present.
Yeah.
Rage towards presence, rage toward the power of now. And that phrase is interpreted so many different ways, but that's how I even wrote rebellion against the fact asserted. I was like, rage against the dying of the light.
Nice.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that was it. I'll take it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Freud, I should tell you. I like to think of philosophy and any belief system, like everything, is like a buffet. So read it all, try right. Everything once. And then what you like, take more of.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of weird Freud stuff that people talk about.
Yeah.
He's got some interesting stuff, but there's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite, one of my favorite quotes from Cheers, somebody said, "Oh, that's a Freudian slip," and then somebody, I think it was Cliff, said, "Oh," somebody said, "What's a Freudian slip?" He goes, "Oh, that's when you, think about one thing and say another." And Cliff was known for living with his mom as a postman, in his 50s or whatever.
Gotcha.
It's kind of funny.
That is kind of funny.
So I thought I'd share that one little
There you
Freudian
go.
joke.
So there you have it.
That's it. So check it out.
Transience.
Transience.
Sigmund Freud.
Siggy. Check it
That's a
out
good one.
at your convenience. Thank you for listening today. I'm going to say my musical recommendation of the day is going to be New Slang. It's a song by The Shins. Really a magical song. It's pretty great. Highlighted specifically in the movie. What's the movie? It's the guy from your favorite show, Scrubs.
Oh, Zach Braff.
Yes, and he's in New
Scrubs.
Jersey. He comes back to New Jersey from this.
Wait.
Used to be in this funeral.
Wait, what is this movie?
This is a movie. It's called The Garden State.
Oh, the garden. I was going to say. I know.
Yeah, Garden
this
State.
movie. I love that movie when she buries all the hamsters.
Yes. So and when they first meet, she's in there and she's got the headphones on, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, have you ever heard of the Shins?" He's like, "Oh yeah, kind of, sort of." And he's like, "Well, if you've ever heard this song, you'll ever know." And she passes it on off the headphones, and he listens to it. And so that's the song. And it's just one of those songs that every time you hear it, it's good, no matter how many times.
That's really cool.
So definitely check it out. I'll put it in the comment section, Facebook.
Awesome. And a note to our listeners: if you need help on learning how to have emotions, watch Scrubs.
There you go.
That helps.
A little quality time.
Totally.
We appreciate your listening awesomeness. By the way, we're wrapping up September right now. We're officially 19 weeks into our podcast.
Boom!
September, as of today, we still got a whole day left, but we've got, the last time I checked, 45 was about a half hour ago. So that's how many listens just this month.
That's really cool. We made it to Stitcher, apparently.
Yep.
We got declined by iTunes.
Yeah, they don't like Coachy
like the
Shit.
word shit.
Yeah, and a couple of our episode titles say stop giving a shit what people think. And so I'm trying to figure
We'll work
that
it
part
out.
Yeah. Really, my theory is if we just get so awesome that they're just going to have to take us.
That's true. But you know what? It could go either way. We could get on MeTunes.
There's other places for people to find us.
Whatever.
Viddler.
Yeah.
We love
Viddler on
you.
the roof.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for that. She's Theresa Hresga.
He's Ryan Stanley.
We'll see you next week.
Peace. Oh,
Whoosh.
wait. Whoosh.
Oh,
Whoosh.